everybody, and welcome to another segment of Hollywood Memories. I'm Dan Roberts, the publisher of The Vegas Voice, and I have the great pleasure of sitting next to and co-hosting with my favorite columnist, the other woman in my life, and that is Miss Beverly Washburn.
Thank you.
How did I do that tonight? Good?
You're so funny. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. We are very excited today because we have a very special guest. We've had her on the show before, but we got such a wonderful response about her. She has so many wonderful stories to tell. And you will remember her, of course, as Margaret in the series Dennis the Menace. And she's one of my dearest friends. And I'm so excited to have you as our guest, Jeannie. So let's give a warm welcome to my friend, Jeannie Russell.
Jeannie, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. It's good to see your face.
There you go.
And you're
and early.
Yeah, we're going to touch on a bunch of stuff, Jeannie, if you don't mind. But I would like to start with, I guess, what most people recognize and know you for, and that is for the TV series Dennis the Menace, and especially your role as Margaret and working with Dennis, who was Jay North.
Right. Jay, there's almost a mystic connection between me and Jay, if you will. He was, I believe, instrumental in getting me cast. I'd gone through rounds of interviews, and when they were finally narrowing it down, they had Jay in the room for one interview. And he looked at the director, and it's like, I don't know, it's like he recognized me, somehow. He knew me. He said, I like Jeannie. And so there were a couple more rounds of interviews, and then it was, well, let's see if we can make her look like Margaret. And so they had us on a sound stage, and they put my hair in curls and glasses, and they gave us some business to do. And there was a lot of physical comedy in the show.
Yeah.
And the bit was I had to hold out a cookie and offer it to Jay. And then when he got near, pull it away. And my mother was a Jane Withers fan, and she coached me on her physicality. I had no idea who Jane Withers was. So we had, that timing. And got home that night and sitting in my little rocker. I came from a European household. Okay, drinking a little juice glass of beer, watching the Three Stooges, and the phone rang, and they said, Jeannie's got the job. And I went, And, my life changed forever.
Yeah.
And Jay just passed away this year.
Yeah.
He was shy of his 74th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd been sick for some time. And I will be forever grateful for the nostalgia industry because it got us together after a 20-year lapse.
Really?
Yeah, and that's how it used to go in Hollywood. We used to scatter. If a show was over or we weren't working anymore, it was very seldom did you just get together. You know what I mean? It's a very unique relationship. So I had not seen Jay for 20 years. And a patient / friend of mine said, my friend is in town from New York, Bobby Rivers, who was a very prolific talk show host, and he interviewed everyone, you name it. Meryl Streep on down to moi, okay? And they were in LA and they wanted to talk about child actors, and they said, we booked Jay and he's kind of a mess. Would you be interested in doing? I said, yes. So we hooked up, and I think I sent you a picture down of Jay and me together. It's the first time we'd seen each other in 20 years. And that continued on forever and ever and ever. So nostalgia gave us a platform to continue our friendship growing. And, bless his heart, he would, being the star, they'd book him, and he'd say, if you want me, you got to bring Jeannie Russell too.
No kidding.
Yeah, so I rode his coattails like a son of a gun.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to do the show like Geraldo called. he said, I don't want to do it, but call Jeannie Russell. She knows everything. So I went to New York and, met up with John and everything. So Jay was always sort of like a hovering guardian angel in my life, and he would call and he was always concerned about my well-being financially and otherwise. And so we had trips to Chicago, we had trips to New Orleans, all because of nostalgia. So I was able to tell Bobby met us in Chicago. We were doing the Hollywood Collectors Show. And and Bobby arranged to fly in. Hadn't seen him either since, that one day, fateful day. So I was able to tell Bobby all about it, what he started. And that was a great memory. And then Jay dropped out of doing nostalgia because he was sick and he didn't feel like traveling.
Yeah.
And just before the beginning of this year, I had to undergo some therapy. And the therapy could only be given to me in East Hollywood. Okay. And I drove down there and I nearly dropped because it was right at ground zero. Okay. It's right where our soundstage was, and it was where my grammar school was, and it was where we lived in an apartment on Fernwood. Netflix has got a big corporate building or a studio there now, street called Fernwood. I couldn't believe my eyes. So I had to go there 15 times. And the memories just like were flooding back. That's where it all happened. And it was so bizarre. And then my therapy ended on April 4th, and Jay died on April 6th.
Oh my.
So it was like this, tour back. I don't know. My mind works that way. I connect little mystic dots and things like that. But I thought, how bizarre. But I had not been in that area in years and years.
Beautiful connection that you two always had.
And you kept it, which back to it. And that leads me to another topic, if you don't mind. We spoke about what it's like being a child actress. You definitely, obviously, was Margaret for 5 years. Beverly, we can go on and on with that. But what also similar to Beverly, you had another sibling, a brother, who was also in the movie business, Brian.
A wonderful child actor.
Yeah. And what's it like? What was it like having a brother and sister acting? Were you guys ever competing, or what was it like?
Never competing. It was like our apartment was like vaudeville backstage. It was like entertainers always coming over. My dad was a singer, like Sheb Woolley, who did Purple People Eater. He'd come over, and my mom would run him through some, a session of training with his voice. And Brian and I were trained at a very early age to be little performers, even before we were actors. I was singing opera phonetically and being stretched for ballet. There was never, ever any competition. And I was my dad's favorite. And I was always looking over my shoulder for Brian. So I had, besides us being close, I had this like motherly interest in his well-being. And as Dennis the Menace, I was playing a cartoon, and I was in heavy makeup and hair, my drag, as I'd call it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't recognize me unless I had that on. And Brian, on the other hand, was this beautiful, soulful child. He's the one who got us in the business. There was a knock on the door, and it was an assistant on the Lassie set who said, "We've seen your child, playing on the street. Can you bring him over? And we need a small hand for a pickup shot." So my grandmother hit it off with John's mother, and she would get us called in as extras, and John would come over at lunchtime and play with our toys, and my grandmother would make health foods. She was culturing her own yogurt and pressing her own carrot juice in the 50s. Mm-hmm. So it was Brian's appeal that sort of got us going in it. And as he grew a little bit older, he was experiencing, we were both in and out of public schools unless we were working. Now, he worked with big people. He did Bye Bye Birdie, How the West Was Won. He worked with Steve McQueen. He worked with Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris. So he had the more illustrious career. While I was the cartoon, never any competition. But so when he was in private school and of a certain age, he started having a lot of trouble with jealous kids and jealous teachers. And I watched Stan's interview.
That's Stan Livingston, yeah, for My Three Sons, yeah.
And that's what, when you asked Stan about that, that's what gave me the idea to tell about our experience with that. We had to, our phone got out, our unlisted phone, and we must have gotten 300 calls over the weekend. It's hang-ups, okay? Really? Some kid had taken a file to the office and put the number out. So we took him out of public school and put him in Harvard military. Oh, this was still in public school. There we go. His hair was a little bit longer. It was before, the whole long hair thing hit, but he had to keep it long for Hollywood. And guys would harass him in the bathroom. And finally, one time he took a swing at him and he missed the kid, but he got the radiator heater, okay?
Oh, wow, yeah.
Broke his knuckles, so his hand's in a cast. Oh, and then some girls who were jealous because he wasn't paying them attention, he was carrying his books, followed him home and kicked him in this injured hand, to get his attention. So we took him out of public school, and then he went to Harvard military, thinking, well, okay, that'll ground him. And the ROTC exercise or team leader, they were standing there, and he was holding a bayonet thing. And he came up to Brian and he kicked the gun, and the bayonet went into Brian's arm. So he had to go to the emergency room. Mm-hmm. And so next stop was Notre Dame High, Sherman Oaks. And the brothers teaching were very jealous of him. They would, Brian would be taking a typing test, and they would come up, one of them would come up and rip his paper out of the typewriter, crumple it up, throw it on the floor. He said, well, you failed this one, Russell. And then finally, Brian started to act up a little bit, and he had a detention where he had to sweep the hallway. And a brother was showing off for a new freshman class of kids. Brian was about to graduate. And so he was harassing Brian, and he came out in the hallway, and the whole class is like, watching this. And he kicks the broom that Brian was shoveling, a pail with, and it grabs a watch he'd just been given for his birthday, and the watch flies off. Okay. Well, that was it. Brian pricks this guy up by the lapels and, backs him back into the class, slams him against the blackboard, and the brother's like this, and his feet aren't, touching the floor. And the kids are like, oh my God. And Brian did not get disciplined for that because that was a provoked situation. And I got made fun of, okay, like because I had been playing a cartoon. That's what I did.
Yeah, but but you know what? You said playing a cartoon, but again, as a child, you were a star. I mean, it's not a cartoon. You were an actress on TV in the 50s, early 60s, in which the whole country was watching you.
Yeah, right. And like, I never will forget, Beverly, you're going to remember this. Remember those fake cotton wigs we got? They came in platinum blonde and pink and a different shade of blonde. And there was a dance. And I had my hair pulled back and I had on one of these wigs, and it was held on by bobby pins. And I'm, dancing at one of these mixer dances. And all of a sudden, I'm in searing pain. Someone came up to me and pulled the wig off to prove to everyone that it was me, So just, weird stuff like that. It was hard to integrate with any kind of normalcy into a school situation, So that was a further thing that most child actors had in common, because they couldn't identify with their age group at school because of that fame thing. But I wouldn't trade it,
Yeah.
First time.
Jeannie, what we'd like to do is, we're over the time now. I'd like to No, that's okay. I'd like to stop, end it, and then if you can stay on, let's do a part 2 with another interview, and we'll talk about your the short with the birds and what you did there. Okay, Jason, that's okay with you, Jason? So why don't you hold on? And for this segment of the Hollywood Memories, I'm Dan Roberts, Miss Beverly Washburn, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you, Jeannie.
Thanks, Jeannie, so much.